Alright, and this is episode 3 of Twak Analyzes the Witness. I'll go ahead and just jump right into it. When we last left, I mentioned how the pathways into the temple are all to highlight that when you move towards this specific panel, it reveals its solution, which then reveals the properties of the desert temple itself. Similarly for here, this one you kind of can extrapolate that since it goes right at the top and then it curves around here and there's nothing here glare wise, you can infer that it goes down into the left. And this one you can see part of it, but you can't see the most important parts, which are, the entire right half. And so I think it took me a while to see this on my first playthrough, this sort of slide panel here. But sometimes it feels like this area is meant to, well, not meant to, but like there's a lot of objects in the way, which obviously blocks the sunlight cast by the actual sun. Like it's trying to mimic actual shadows as much as possible. But also, it's really easy to just move around and like have to really switch up your camera angle here, which kind of like how when it was over here, that switching of the camera angle helped, notice how that puzzle functions. And then following the wires, we get to, the top. So that one's easy, it just moves straight down. But then what comes next is a little trickier. And this is when you really have to learn how to see the sunlight, per se. If those first 3 or so puzzles were just about, like, finding out how the shadows interact with the panels, then these next 3 are about finding how to properly view the sunlight, which I did not do. But I'll go ahead and do the front temple steps here. Whoops. These ones can be kind of tricky. And they really, really highlight sort of the game's rendering properties and its engine. Because if you don't have the full sunlight, then you won't be able to move the pathway all the way through. And this is sort of the same for every environmental puzzle that uses the sun in this area. There we go. Which I think it's just really interesting how it's applied. Okay, so those first 3 puzzles, like I said, show like the shadows and how those interact. But then these next 3 are about understanding how to actually view panels when they're at an angle, which is to take the ray of light, bounce it off the panel, and then find where it will land. So that was on the right side. And then now that we know how that works, we can use it on the left side. And similarly, this one you have to get way up close because the light is reflecting downward. And then all that is to power this panel here. There we go. I always have problems with this one in particular. I was completely wrong about it the first time, so excuse me. But I do appreciate that this one forces you to go out of the main part of the temple And then that kind of points to the door down there where it actually allows you to enter the temple. Yeah, if you get up close, you notice that the sun kind of bounces from that angle. And so you can kind of use that to draw a further line to show that point. But before I go down into the temple, there's a few things I want to address. One of which is here. I really like these environmental puzzles with the sunlight. Whoop. I think I gotta get closer. No, further? Oh, there we go. And then this one, I think you... Nope, you have to go even further. So that there's a wider sun reflection. There we go. So, one thing that's really interesting about the environmental puzzles here that use the sunlight, which are most of the environmental puzzles here, is that they're kind of the opposite of the panels, where the panels, the sunlight shines on everything but the solution. In the environmental puzzles, they shine directly on the solution. So they're kind of inverse of each other, that through the objective sense, you have to look at the thing that isn't the sun. And then in the metaphysical sense, you have to look at the sun itself. Speaking of which, this sunlight design is pretty common throughout here. It's also over there, which I'll get to in a moment. And it might look familiar because that diamond sort of shape for the sunbeams, or the points, I guess, is very similar to the sun logo that we saw at the orchard and at the tutorial. Keep that in mind for now. And then here we go.
I maintain that the cosmic religious feeling is the strongest and...
Oh, wait, hold on. Whoops.
Motive for scientific research. Only those who realize the immense efforts and, above all, the devotion without which pioneer work in theoretical science cannot be achieved are able to grasp the strength of the emotion out of which alone such work, remote as it is from the immediate realities of life, can issue. What a deep conviction of the rationality of the universe, and what a yearning to understand, were it but a feeble reflection of the mind revealed in this world, Kepler and Newton must have had to enable them to spend years of solitary labor in disentangling the principles of celestial mechanics. Those whose acquaintance with scientific research is derived chiefly from its practical results easily develop a completely false notion of the mentality of the men who, surrounded by a skeptical world, have shown the way to kindred spirits scattered wide through the world and through the centuries. Only one who has devoted his life to similar ends can have a vivid realization of what has inspired these men and given them the strength to remain true to their purpose in spite of countless failures. It is cosmic religious feeling that gives a man such strength. A contemporary has said, not unjustly, that in this materialistic age of ours, the serious scientific workers are the only profoundly religious people. Albert Einstein, 1930.
So that, first of all, sorry for the noise. Apparently my microphone, or my headset wasn't plugged in all the way, so I didn't hear the voice at first, and I was really confused. But so, that is a very, very relevant and important audio log for the purposes of the game's themes, because in that quote, Einstein compares the devotion of scientists to the devotion of sort of the religious lay people, and this is, of course, as he explains, in the sense that science, in the rigorous pursuit of understanding the universe, is very much so based on belief that there is something when the evidence doesn't quite add up, like, as people who live in the 21st century, we know things like gravity and, subatomic particles because of the research of those before us. But at the time, it took, painstaking efforts for people to practice their theories and iterate on them. And that sort of conviction in a truth that doesn't quite add up yet is sort of the same as religion. And he says cosmic religious feeling or cosmic religious belief, not in like a belief in some specific religion or organized religion even, but that belief in the truth, or like a belief in some unifying grand purpose or unifying sort of connection. Just that deep, deep conviction within yourself. And that comparison between science and religion and thought and like metaphysical philosophy is one of the core tensions in The Witness. There's the Heisenberg quote that talked about the tension between metaphysical and objective. And now Einstein is saying that those are more or less the same thing. It's also worth noting that in history, a lot of scientific developments were spurred by religious convictions in the organized sense, which the Desert Temple is very keen on portraying. Because, so it being in a desert, I actually did look up some of the architecture in here, and I'm pretty sure it is directly based on some Egyptian architecture. But think of like the pyramids, which are both, obviously they're politically motivated because pharaohs were the ruling class and they wanted grand monuments to themselves, but also they were religiously motivated in the sense that the sort of wall engravings and the whole procedures behind them were like deeply entangled with the mythology of life, like the afterlife and the Duat and all that. And so all the sciences that went into building the pyramid were partially due, not entirely, but at least partially due to that religious sort of drive. And it's very fitting then that Einstein quote is in the Desert Temple because of that purpose. And I'll get into a bit more of that symbolism in a second, but I want to point out this here. So this is really interesting to me. So we have like some waves, and then there's a boat out here on the horizon, another boat. There's no actual boat. Instead there's some rocks. And then we have this, a cliff face, and then these two sort of pillars here with with like a little star in the middle. Kind of looks like the stars in the rest of the game. And then the sun logo once again. And pretty much no matter where you stand, unless you stand on the sun itself, the glare from the sun will cover that sun logo. And first of all, this is sort of another point of recursion, that the shape we are standing on right now is this sort of box-like, step-like structure here, and that this little star is this oval pattern in front of us. Now, if you've played the game and you've gotten this environmental puzzle, you'll know that this is actually, when viewed from like the boat itself, a circle, and that much like the rest of the environmental puzzles here, the sunlight is used to create that circle and fill it in. Now, I believe this is supposed to be some sort of navigational tool for like suppose people actually lived here in the desert, this would be that purpose. Almost like a lighthouse, but not quite. Because we do see a boat in the water. You could also argue that that's a hint as to how this environmental puzzle functions, that you need to take the boat through here for then the sunlight to line up. But when you look at it, it's the sun and then a star that kind of fits inside the sun, but the star itself is down here. So like, Yeah, and then even the glare kind of highlights the contours of the cliffside. So I imagine this is supposed to be some sort of navigational tool like that. And, I mean, I imagine also because there's these large rock protrusions, it's meant to be that purpose, so to, like, help people navigate the rocks around the cliffside. But additionally, not only is this another form of recursion, or another form of technology motivated by different things or using the sun itself, not only is it a game design hint, but it's also another reference to boats, and specifically shipwrecks. There's the siren over in Symmetry, and now we have this. And you can actually, if you go all the way to the end over here, you can see the shipwreck itself jutting out from the side. And I'm still going to put off actually talking more about that for now. But again, keep that imagery in mind, because it is very, very relevant. Anyways, I really like this environmental puzzle because it's almost like you're making a bridge between the rock and the stairway. Also, it turns that like corner of the platform there into a 2D plane. Also, I like the puzzles that, this is just again personal taste. I like the puzzles that wrap around yourself, but it's very annoying at my current mouse sensitivity. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and go down these stairs. So there's a bunker, which I'm not going to complete yet because I'm not supposed to be able to complete it, but it's another carrot on a stick of sort of, being able to see, what's the word? Being able to see mechanics that you don't know the answer to then encourage you to explore. But we have another Dorito puzzle, which in this case, again, the out of the way sort of theming is underneath a cliff by the sea in a way that's hard for you to see from above. But additionally, it's another pairing, this time with a bunker, that both of those are underneath the cliffside here in the desert. Also, I like that the bunker here, it's more visible when you go inside, that it's very like broken apart and partially built. But I just like that there's this like tin roofing here. It keeps up with the theme of being really hot. And I think there's an environmental puzzle for tracing the outline of the coast itself, but I don't really remember how to get that. It's not super important. Oh, here we go. Nope. Actually, nope. There we go. Does that actually point to where the Dorito puzzle is? Not quite, but almost. Okay. That's enough outside for now. Pretty much covered everything there that I wanted to. Now let's go underground. So the part outside there talked about how the shadows interplay with the panels and how it sort of was a primer to using the direction of the sunlight to figure out where to stand. This is sort of the inverse in that you have to create sunlight that will help you solve the puzzles. So in this case, you can get really up close to see that side, and then we were able to see the left side from the skylight itself. It interestingly gives the player some agency to how they solve these sunlight puzzles, which is only furthered throughout the rest of the area. Then finally we have this bottom part where you have to consider multiple angles. This one that is coming from there, so you can see it kind of covers the corner there. Also, what's important about this panel on the floor is that it illustrates further the properties of viewing a flat panel. This time the light's over there, so we have to stand here. And I think I should be able to just solve it like this. Yeah. Because that is really important in the third basement level. Also, I really like here how it shows you immediately the glare in the water, and then gives you some time to, practice flipping it. So the desert temple being next to the symmetry area, not only is it relevant because like the sand from the desert is used to make the glass in symmetry, but it's also relevant because both areas rely heavily on reflections, whereas symmetry use those on the panels directly in that logical sense. The desert puzzles use it more naturally, that you're looking for the reflections of light and you're looking for the reflections on the water here to solve the sort of riddles. Oh, also this environmental puzzle bugs me because there's two variants of it. One in the water, and then wait, are they both for the water? I know this one there's like there's different solutions for it. Yeah, it's just they're both in the water. Oh, that's right. There's two separate bars that this connects to. The top one and the second to the top one. They're two different distances. I used to think it was just that it was two different perspectives. So never mind, that's actually kind of clever that you can line it up with two different bars that way. So, talking about like the religiously motivated technology, this is paraphrasing. I'm not super up to date with the actual like discoveries on this. Hold on, sorry, I'm really bad at reflecting things. Okay, but one of the like theories of how they were able to paint and design the interiors of the pyramids is that they used mirrors to reflect sunlight in order to create lighting, because if they had used like torches, the walls would get very smoky and kind of messed up. But if they were to use mirrors, then they wouldn't get smoky, but they would still be able to see, theoretically. And this is directly related to what we're doing here, is that the panels kind of act like mirrors. And we are using those to reflect light to view the way. Additionally, while I'm here, I want to go ahead and reference the like direct Egyptian mythology symbolism. Also, this is really cool. You can't solve that at all, but when you first enter, you have to walk to the right or left, which makes sure you see these switches, which by now the player knows are like activators. So yeah, I want to again note that the desert temple is on the northwest side of the map, with the coastline being directly like the west coast, which is important because, I mean, we all know the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And so by going down in the west and then the elevator will take us up in the east, it mimics the sunrise sunset. But on a more direct level, to sort of compare it to the Egyptian mythology, this is the path that Ra takes throughout the day, which is, again, based off the actual natural setting and rising of the sun. But specifically, so first off, the light that we had from the actual sunlight got dimmer and dimmer to where it was, we were out in the sun, and then it was just a skylight. I'm glad I remembered to check this. And then it was no natural sunlight and only artificial sunlight. And now it is pretty dim artificial sunlight again. And then we'll see when we get into the next room that the next room is very orange, which is like a sunrise sort of color. But what is important, though, is this room. Because this room has this raising and lowering of water. And in Egyptian mythology, when Ra would enter the Duat at night, he would travel along the Nile, or like the part of the Nile that's in the Duat. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, by the way. Did I do that upside down? There we go. And so, similarly, we have to complete this fairly long series of puzzles down here inside the river. Pretty much all of these we can only solve because we're looking into the river itself, or a pool. I guess it's not really a river, but it's thematically similar to the Nile. Or at least the Nile's role in Egyptian mythology. That one's the one that goes here. And this is kind of fun because previously the panels weren't moving, it was only the reflection of the panels. But now we actually have a panel that moves along with the water. Just need a little bit more. This panel actually is visible the entire time, but it's only possible to solve once you have done the rest of the area. So I guess in a way, you are bringing the sun into the room by adding more light. Okay. And then finally we have this triangle puzzle. I believe you need to do the yeah, you need to do the triangle puzzle to actually open the door. Which there's a few angles you can view it at, I believe. In this case, it's a longer panel than we've had to deal with before. And so it is trickier because you have to consider more points of reflection, which I am clearly not doing a good job. Except the very end. Hey, look. I actually do memorize, or have memorized, this answer. I want to get this environmental puzzle while I'm here. I really like this one because while we cannot go into the water, we do rely on its reflection to see the solutions here. However, this environmental puzzle does go directly into the water. I mean, it rises back up, of course, but Yeah, it does go directly down into the water and then back around. It's sort of like we're descending into the pool. Alright, I think we can see part of the solution to the triangle puzzle here from this angle. Again, it's been a while since I actually had to solve this one. Oh well, I'll just do the solution. It's pretty easy to remember. Just so we can get on. I also did want to mention that this puzzle, I think, is one of the hardest in the game. This is me personally. I had huge trouble with this one, maybe more than most of the rest of the sunlight puzzles here, because I didn't quite think about how this room actually functions, which is that you're not looking for how the light would bounce off the panel. You are looking at how the light bounces off of the pool. So it's not that you are trying to see... well, I guess this is sort of an exception, is these two. But, like, in this case, it's that you're not trying to get the reflection of the sunlight onto the panel like before. I say sunlight, but it's a artificial light. It's that the pool is a flat surface, and you're trying to get that reflection in your field of view. And that's why that panel that's on the floor in the first basement level is so important, is because it makes sure you understand that point before you reach the flooded room. Oh, that's right. I did want to mention one more thing, which is that when the water is up, the walls here kind of look like audio waves, sound waves, if viewed through like a spectrogram. I think that's what it's called, spectrograph. But there's no real way to actually convert those, and they probably aren't audio waves to begin with. I just think that's kind of interesting. Okay, final room of the desert temple here. The rest of these just kind of finish exploring ideas. For example, these two panels both illustrate how light shines off of curved surfaces in different ways. You can directly see how against the, what is that, concave curve, it moves faster as you kind of move around. But then on the convex curve, it kind of goes slower. I mean, not literally move, you know. And then similarly, the light is viewed differently on these two. Oh, and I don't have enough room in the camera to solve it there. This time, creating a panel that you have to switch views between the water and the panel itself. This one is a return of the... Oh wait, no, you can't solve that yet. This one's interesting because... So the idea is that you can't solve it from this side. So you have to follow the wire and walk around to the back. But what makes it so tricky is that this is the only panel in the desert where you not only have to flip the result vertically, which is what you do when the water is the solution, but you have to flip it horizontally as well. So now we've gotten two reflections in one panel. And then, yeah, this one is like the one on the surface, or like the ones on the surface where you move them up, but instead this one you change its vertical tilt. Alright, so that unlocks the desert elevator, but you might notice there's this tunnel back there. there's no visible sort of activator panels. And you might come back down after you've done the elevator to actually reach it, since there's no way to get back there ahead of time. But you can see the direction it extends outward. Sorry, I'm just... There we go. So now we've risen in the east with the sunlight, in this case the laser, going even higher than before. But you might notice that in the direction of that hallway there are these little skylights poking out. Oh, I'll give the laser a second to actually fire. Actually, never mind, I can go. So these skylights are pointing over to the town where the windmill was. So, in the last video, I talked about how it feels like this is the intended sort of second laser in the game. I asked people on the Witness subreddit what order they completed the areas, and it seemed like... Hold on. Most people, at least 60%, had done either Orchard, Symmetry, or Desert first. And what I think is important to note is that all three of those, well, at least Orchard and Desert both point towards the town. The Orchard has the windmill that you go right up to and you can actually see the town, but the Desert has that tunnel that hints at some sort of underground area, as well as these skylights that are following that direction straight towards the town. And the yellow laser, well, it's kind of cycling between blue and yellow. Oh no, that's just the position. Wait, no, it is cycling. Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, it's yellow like sunlight, and then blue because that's sort of the typical laser color right now. Before I actually go into the town, I just want to stop by the lake real quick. This is fairly well known that the lake is a map of the island, and all of the collectibles in the game are viewable on the lake itself. So for reference, that is the candlelit sort of lanterns here are the lasers. The white flowers are audio logs, and you can kind of see yellow flowers over there. Those are underground audio logs. The fountains are obelisks. If they're flowing this way, then they are active, and then if they're really high up, that means they're completed. That tree looks really weird. This clam shell is a bunker, and then somewhere around here are the Dorito puzzles. Should be one around here somewhere. Yeah, there we go. Which are these leaves that are triangles. If they're sunk in, I believe, that means they're completed. So, along with that, there's a few other Easter eggs. So, like, there's a rusted piece of metal over there, which is the shipwreck. And then over there, kind of in that cluster, there's a woman underwater clutching a lantern, which I'll talk about later. That's in the direction of the swamp. But then over here, there's this large piece of driftwood. And so this is the tutorial. You can see that's the True Searcher's audio log. So then what would this be, where the driftwood is? Well, this is the peninsula, which I've been really building up. I think it'll be next episode that I actually talk about it. And then this is sort of where the jungle is, but not quite. Sort of between the town and the jungle. There's a little bit of beach where I think you can summon the boat. That's where the driftwood is. So it's like half boat, half, what's the word? Peninsula. So, we're not actually done with the desert yet. If we were to follow the laser, I mean, we notice that it's not pointing to the mountain. Instead, it's pointing past the town and over there. But when we get up here, we see this setup. This orange panel, and then down here there's this sort of starburst looking panel. And if you stand in the right direction, you can actually see a glare on the panel itself. Hold on, where's the sun? There's the sun. Yeah. So this sort of helps see that the direction the sun is pointing down to the panel back to us is this. That's sort of a hint that we need to use this panel itself up here to redirect the laser to the mountain. So if the mountain is there, then we want the panel to be sort of between the mountain and the laser. So it's this or the next one. So what this is we are now pretty much seeing a direct visualization of what we've been doing this whole time. That the laser is an easy to see visualization of the sunlight and the rays of light we've been reflecting. And then we get to reflect it ourselves now and see the relation between the panel and the ray of light. It's sort of a reward for understanding it so much that now we get this visualization that makes it so much clearer. But additionally, it does put you in the sort of perspective of you are now the light reflecting off the panels. So that's about everything I had for this episode. I think next time we're going to go explore the town a bit, go over that way, and then there's one more area that we'll need to discover and explore. And if you know what this game is and you've played it, then you'll know probably what I mean. Until then, hope you enjoyed this slightly shorter episode. Thank you for watching.